I'm Conrad, and welcome back to another episode of Old's Oscar Countdown. And this week, we're going to be looking at the Best Supporting Actor category, continuing on my predictions of the 2021 Oscar nominations. But if you're new to the series, that's what I do every single week, is talk about my predictions on what I think will get nominated and then eventually will win for the 2021 Oscars. But it's also more than that. This is an awards channel. In the future coming weeks, I'm going to be covering things like Golden Globe nominations, SAG Awards, reacting to things, how they will ultimately affect the Oscars, but giving my predictions and giving you all the awards show necessary content that you crave. Right now, we're only doing once a week videos, but as things start to pick up, there will be sort of irregular videos in terms of multiple times a week when I give Golden Globe nominations, predictions, or reactions to things. Those will be coming as well. But for right now, we're going to be doing the traditional format that we've been doing for the past 4 years. Now, Old Oscar Countdown in our 5th season, and you guys have been enjoying the show so far and been showing a lot of support. So please keep that up. Subscribe to the channel, comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and who you think should be in here and what are your predictions. That's why I do these channels. So please, I encourage you to do that. But without further ado, let's just jump into it. My first pick here being Sacha Baron Cohen from The Trial of the Chicago 7. Now, despite never being nominated for an acting Oscar, Sacha Baron Cohen I still think is very well regarded within the industry. He's always in the awards conversation some way or another, whether it be on the TV side with shows like Spy or even Who is America, even back all the way to writing Borat. He got nominated for writing the very first Borat, which was a strange thing for the time for being a comedy movie. So while he's been in roles like Hugo and things like that, I feel like he's been on the periphery of maybe getting that awards conversation. But I think this is the final role here that he will ultimately get nominated in a movie that I expect to be well liked and well nominated, Trial of the Chicago 7. He, for a lot of people, is the standout and the sort of consensus standout as Abby Hoffman, the probably most recognizable real life person in the movie, the Vietnam era activist, sort of the representation of hippie flower power, liberal movement, politics wise in the 60s. But the movie's kind of hard to read, and I think while he could very much win this category very easily, it's also a performance that may not even get nominated. Now, for the most part, I think most people think he will get nominated and that he is the ultimate standout from the movie. But after you go from there, it sort of divides by a lot of people. A lot of people think Yaha Abdul Mateen is the best performance or the second best, or Mark Rylance, and they all have sort of their own ranking. So it's hard to judge the other performers. But I do think for the most part, if Sacha Baron Cohen's not the sort of standout performance for you, he's definitely that number 2, or at the very least, you respect him enough to sort of give him the nomination here because he's a great role. He's playing a real life person, which we know the Academy likes. He has these sort of long, serious speeches where he's talking about ideologies and politics and movements and revolutions, but also these sort of small little comedic elements that Sacha Baron Cohen brings to the character and allows to be funnier, because Abby Hoffman also did stand up and things like that and was sort of a commentator in that way. But I actually think the best chance for him to not only get nominated but also win is if none of the other men from Trial of Chicago 7 get nominated in this category. That for recent years, people have sort of been jumping on this idea that, oh, every year there's going to be 2 acting performances from the same movie getting nominated in the same category. That for the past 3 years, we've been getting that. In 2018, we got Sam Rockwell and Woody Harrelson for 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. The next year, we had Rachel Weisz and Emma Stone both getting nominated from The Favorite. And then we have last year Joe Pesci and Al Pacino for The Irishman. But we have to realize that even though these past 3 years we've been getting these multiple nominations from the same movie in the same category, it also doesn't happen that often, particularly with the Best Supporting Actor. That's happened these past couple of years, but before that, you have to go all the way back to 1992 with Harvey Keitel and Ben Kingsley for Bugsy. So it's actually not that common of a situation to occur. And I feel like there's a little bit of recency bias where people are going, oh, it's going to be Yaha Abdul Mateen, but then some people are saying, oh, it's Mark Rylance. Some people think it's Frank Langella. And that's also the problem, is that a lot of people just aren't sure about who's going to get nominated. So for a lot of reasons, Sacha Baron Cohen could not get nominated at all if there's a vote splitting, and that'd be very surprising. But I think his best chances is if in a very competitive year, they sort of focus our efforts on just getting him nominated, and that will be sort of the force in terms of the acting lead for the movie and sort of the acting performance that could win for the movie. And I think if it gets a couple nominations, it's going to vote split, and there could be a scenario where Sacha doesn't get nominated at all, but there's also, I think, a stronger chance right now that Sacha's the only one to get nominated because of that sort of role, the sort of idea that Abby Hoffman's the most recognizable out of all the people in the movie, and Sacha Baron Cohen also has Borat 2, so that helps him sort of in terms of visibility and sort of being charming and campaigning and things like that. And I just think it's the right role with the right person in the right movie. And I think that he has a very good shot, if he's the only one nominated from his movie in this category, of actually winning it too. But despite my sort of insistence on that, I also think that this is a very competitive year, and also a year where it's not competitive in terms of nominations, because it is very competitive. But despite my plea for Sacha Baron Cohen, I also think this is a wide open race, that anyone can get nominated, but also anyone can win. That even though something like my last week's video, Best Supporting Actress, I think Amanda Seyfried has a good chance of winning, and everyone else, I wasn't sure who was going to get nominated. But in this video, not only do I think that anybody can get nominated, that my 5 could be completely wrong, I also think that anyone can still win, that this race to win is still wide open. And for a lot of people, that winner is Leslie Odom Jr. for One Night in Miami. Currently I have him number 2 because he's a real solid chance, I think, at getting nominated. It's a little bit weird because there's the 4 men in the movie, but 2 are going for lead and 2 are going for supporting. And for the most part, it's sort of Kingsley Ben-Adir for playing Malcolm X as lead, as sort of a horse there. And then in terms of the Best Supporting Actor, we have here Leslie Odom for playing a legendary singer, Sam Cooke, and I think he has sort of the best chances of representing the movie. Now, for a lot of people, if this is going to be a strong movie, should get in for director, screenplay, picture, and ultimately could win. I'm right now a little bit more hesitant to it because the way it's positioned, it's a movie that did the traditional festival release alongside something like Nomadland, but is seen as sort of the number 2 constantly, where Nomadland won the People's Choice Award and the Golden Lion. One Night in Miami was always the runner-up, the number 2, and so if this is the case where we believe that this movie is going to get director and picture and things like that, well then chances are, if it's so well liked, it should win, or at the very least get an acting win. And I think if it were to happen, and if it is as well liked as we think it is, Leslie Odom has the best chances here. Here being the sort of standout of the movie, playing legendary Sam Cooke. We know the Oscars also like actors who do their own singing. Leslie Odom Jr. is most known probably from Hamilton for playing Aaron Burr, sort of the co-lead alongside Lin-Manuel Miranda from the play Hamilton, and has developed sort of an interesting film career, and has been in a couple other movies, Harriet and Murder on the Orient Express. But this is his sort of first breakout role where people are really going to go, who is this? This guy's really great. Maybe they saw him in Hamilton, had a vague recollection, but I really think this is going to be a standout performance from him because he has sort of the larger speeches, but also the very strong emotional core to the movie as well, and sort of the breakout, the person you remember coming out of the film. And unlike something like Trial of the Chicago 7, I think there's a consensus that Leslie Odom is the one guy from One Night in Miami that's being pushed, particularly in this category, and that will definitely help him. The fans of One Night in Miami, which we think are strong, if he's a stand-up performance in a movie we think is strong, not only does he have a good chance to win, but I also think he's pretty solid for a nomination. Then my third pick, I'm going to go with Daniel Kaluuya from Judas and the Black Messiah. This is a movie and a performance that I've been championing all the way back in my Best Picture video over a month ago now, and it's starting to finally catch on. More people are starting to see it, and naturally they're gravitating to Daniel Kaluuya. And I think that this has sort of shot in the rankings for a lot of people. Even though I've always sort of had it here in my thoughts and in my supporting actor, I still feel very confident in this movie because there's a lot of questions. Have enough people seen it? Is it really good enough? What's the kind of role? Is it a co-lead? Is it more of a supporting? How are they going to be positioning this? Is it going to be released too late? These are all valid questions, yes, but the people who have seen it have a very strong reaction to it, and I think it is well positioned, particularly for someone like Daniel Kaluuya to get in for that nomination. And he's a guy who the Academy has liked. We saw in the 2017 for Get Out. He plays Chris, the sort of lead, and it's not necessarily a standout role. It's sort of a sort of straight man role. He's very good at it, but it's not necessarily a showy role that they would like to nominate him. Despite that, they nominated him for Best Actor for Get Out because they loved the movie so much, but also they loved him. So that indication for me also tells me that they really do like Daniel Kaluuya. And since that point, starring in movies or being in movies like Black Panther and Widows and having these great parts, role after role, finally it seems like this is his role, his Oscar role, that can not only get him the nomination, but also the win. He plays legendary Black Panther leader, the Chicago area, Fred Hampton, who is sort of part controversial, part sort of mysterious and mythical and legendary, but an important, iconic, historical figure. And I think the way the film's structured, it really helps him, that the role is really perfect. I think the movie should be well liked, maybe not huge on the scale of something like One Night in Miami, but still liked, particularly with performance-based like Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield. And the way the film is structured is that it's about an FBI agent infiltrating the Black Panthers to try to get more information on Fred Hampton. So it has a sort of lingering, interesting, sort of peering into this man man's life who's part scared, but also you're in awe of him. Kaluuya has these chances for these great, intense and passionate speeches, but is also still to have that mythical presence because we don't get to know him too much because we're looking at him through the sort of audience surrogate of the FBI agent played by Lakeith Stanfield. And that is a part that has done well and wonders for performers like Anthony Hopkins for Hannibal Lecter or Heath Ledger for Dark Knight, where we don't really know too much about them and they pop in the scenes that they're in and they really leave an impact. And I think this is sort of the performance for Kaluuya this year. We don't know ultimately how the film will do, but if the film does well and starts to build up some steam, I think Kaluuya is a real solid lock, not only for the nomination, but actually a good chance of winning too. Then with my fourth pick, I'm going to go with Stanley Tucci from Supernova, where some of the movies are critics' movies, some are Oscar movies, and I think Supernova is going to be an Oscar movie. This is maybe not going to show up on critics' lists, it may be released a little bit too late and will go under the radar, but Oscar members are getting screeners of this, they're seeing this, and it seems like a sort of traditional, sentimental, really strong emotions, two-hander about themes that they resonate to with strong acting performances, which is just the sort of formula and type of movie that the Academy sort of consistently has appreciated. And I think Supernova is a movie that people like Judas and the Black Messiah that is still being sort of overlooked and underappreciated. And I think the standout being Stanley Tucci. Now, if you don't know, the movie is about two gay lovers played by Colin Firth and Stanley Tucci who go on a road trip as one of them starts to experience dementia and sort of their mind starts to slip from them with that kind of a disease. And the person who is experiencing dementia is Stanley Tucci's character. So that's why he's in supporting and Colin Firth is in lead. So you can be cynical about this, gay lovers, dementia, check, acting performances, dramatic, check, check, check. Tucci will get nominated, and in that perspective, it will get nominated if you sort of believe those things are true and that's just an automatic checking system, which of course is not true, but those are themes that do resonate with Academy members. But I also think Stanley Tucci is sort of in the right position here. He's been nominated before for movies that weren't sort of big Oscar plays. He was nominated for The Lovely Bones. He's always been in the conversation with things like Julie and Julia, and he's kind of been a character actor that a lot of people respect and like, and has been doing great stuff for many years. And I think people are sort of finally to turn around on the Tooch and really sort of appreciating his performance and his role in cinema. And I think they'll see Supernova, they'll be really impressed by him, they'll be really moved by what he's doing and the character that he's playing and the sort of sensitivity that he brings. And the question ultimately will be, will enough people see Supernova? But it does seem like a movie with the correct content, with the right role, with the right actor. Now the movie may not be as well liked and as well seen and get sort of best picture and things like that, but I think Stanley Tucci, if anyone is to get in for Supernova, it does seem like a very actory role to get into something like SAGs and sort of gain that momentum and build that speed where he's just sort of an automatic lock. A lot of people don't think he is right now, but I think Supernova is going to catch on, so watch out for that movie and then lock in Stanley Tucci here for a nomination, at least I think so. And then my number 5 pick here, I'm going to go with Paul Raci from Sound of Metal. This was a movie that I really enjoyed, and he was a standout for me. As much as I loved Riz Ahmed, he was a guy that I walk out of going, who was this guy? He's maybe giving the best supporting actor performance of the year, and I was really interested in seeing how well Sound of Metal was doing and sort of rooting for Sound of Metal. But as the movie has sort of caught on, it seems to gain already sort of a cult status on the internet, and a lot of Academy members also have been responding positively to that. And particularly with the nominations, we know that to get a nomination, it all very much helps to have a cult fan base, to have a select amount of people who really love your movie and are going to do it across the board. Where, winning the categories is a different scenario, but in terms of nominations, that cult fan base is really important. And I think this Sound of Metal definitely has it. I think Riz Ahmed is definitely shooting up the rankings for Best Lead Actor. I think Paul Raci is the sort of other standout actor. I know it was for me before all this hype, and when I think people are seeing it, they're sort of having a similar response. So much so also is that this will be the sort of critics' darling. That Paul Raci is not an actor that a lot of people know of, but he won the Boston Film Critics Group for supporting actor. He won Florida. He also was nominated for Los Angeles. So he's an actor who's getting nominated and winning a lot of these critics groups, which could help him and sort of propel him over the edge. Now that doesn't necessarily mean everything. Someone like Ethan Hawke from First Reform got a lot of critical buzz and ultimately didn't get nominated, but then someone like Viggo Mortensen for Captain Fantastic did. So it's hard to judge the critical response, but that's always someone to keep an eye on. And because I think Sound of Metal's appreciation is gaining, I think Paul Raci could be one of those guys that sort of slips in, and the next thing you know, though, it gets sound and then gets supporting actor and best lead actor, and it's like, wow, is this an Oscar contender? It very well could be, but I think right now Paul Raci's in really well positioned here. He's also playing a deaf person, someone with a deaf disability, sort of guiding Riz Ahmed's character through his hearing loss. And we've had actors before, like Marlee Beth Matlin, who won for who's a deaf actress who won for Children of the Lesser God, so they're not sort of stigmatized against this in a way they may even encourage this. And Paul Raci is not a disabled actor, however, grew up with disabled parents, so knows how to sign and really adds that sort of element of authenticity to the character and to the performance and ultimately to the film. So he's sort of the critical darling and one that is really well positioned here, and a great standout role and a standout performance in a movie that's really well liked. So I think Paul Raci is actually a pretty solid lock now here to get in the nominations. Now we're saying that because we haven't seen any of the nominations, and things can change like that, but I really would like to see Paul Raci get in here, and there's a lot of things going for him, which is why I put him here in this 5th slot. Now there's a couple of movies I want to mention in the running. There's really a bunch of supporting actor performances that could get it in. The first one I want to mention is Bill Murray from On the Rocks. I'd love to see this get nominated. I mean, this is really a co-lead performance, which we know in supporting categories really helps. He's sort of the Bill Murray, everyone thinks of Bill Murray as the sort of legend of Bill Murray, the sort of fun, always making you laugh, likable kind of a character. In this movie, he's very sort of male chauvinist in parts, but also has a strong emotional care and love for his daughter. He has sort of a big emotional scene, maybe not big, but emotional scene at the end. He is a strong emotional core of the movie, but he's also part of the jokes, and he's kind of Bill Murray, and Bill Murray is so well liked. So we don't know how much campaigning he's going to do, and I think ultimately this is a movie that is going to fall in the rankings just because it's losing out in original screenplay. It could get a couple Globes and sort of push its momentum back up, but unfortunately it was released on Apple TV Plus. I'm not sure how many people saw it. It's not getting a lot of critical response. It was maybe released a little bit too early, so Bill Murray will really have to have a passionate fan base to get in, and ultimately right now he seems to be sort of on the cusp and falling. And then my final in the running pick, I went with the sort of Trial of the Chicago 7 cast. So a lot of people think that Sacha Baron Cohen, as I mentioned before, will get nominated. But then they're split on who's the next guy. Some people think it's Yaha Abdul Mateen. Some people think it's Frank Langella. Some people think it's Mark Rylance. So there's really a split between a lot of people. And that was sort of consistent and similar to also the critical response. That when people came out of the movie, a lot of people appreciated Sacha Baron Cohen. But in terms of the rankings, some people thought Yaha was the best. Some people thought Mark Rylance. Some people even thought, Joseph Gordon-Levitt or Jeremy Strong. It was sort of a divide because of how stacked the ensemble is. I have a fear that none of them will get nominated, but the sort of lead being, and sort of leader in the pack being Sacha Baron Cohen, and then the others won't get nominated. I think that some people are being overinflating the fact that there's been multiple nominations in the past 3 years from a movie in the same category. Like I mentioned before, The Irishman, The Favorite, 3 Billboards. I think people are overinflating that sort of recency bias. It doesn't happen that often. And also what's unique to those movies, something like last year with The Irishman, it was very much Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and Joe Pesci. De Niro was in lead, and it was Pacino and Pesci, and those were the standout, and those were the two standouts of the movie. In this movie, there really isn't a clear number 2 or a clear number 3. It is Sacha Baron Cohen for the most part, but then the others we don't necessarily know. So maybe it turns out to be Mark Rylance, but I could very well see a scenario where someone like Yaha Abdul Mateen gets in at SAG, and then someone like Frank Langella gets at the Globes, and then Mark Rylance, because he's British, gets in for BAFTA. And then at the end of the day, then you may just go, okay, we'll pick one of those guys, but there could also be a scenario that you're not factoring in, which is none of them get nominated. So right now I'm just keeping them on the outset because I don't think there's a consensus that's needed to get in for dual nominations within the same movie, within the same category. That is kind of rare, and it doesn't have that sort of solid number 2. So that's why I'm sort of fading those guys from the movie. I sort of grouped them all into one category here, and I think that Sacha ultimately is that sort of lead. Particularly, there's a lot of contenders in this category, and it's not as clear-cut as people think. So I could see some of these guys sort of coming in and getting the nominations. Guys like Paul Raci in movies that are more appreciated and sort of taking over the vote splitting that could happen between guys like Mark Rylance and Yaha Abdul Mateen and whatnot. But that's about it, guys. Ultimately, we'll have to see at the SAGs and the BAFTAs and how those awards and nominations roll out. But that's why you're going to stay tuned for these channels for the most up-to-date awards-based content. I hope you appreciate the channel. Please, like I said, comment below and let me know your thoughts. Once again, there's also timestamps in the description if you want to jump around and hear my thoughts on some of the different movies and do it that way. That's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. And until next time, stay tuned.